Good morning, Coach Joe here. Welcome to my YouTube channel, and this is the first question and answer session that I'll be doing, answering questions from my team on all things fitness and OCR. So without further ado, let's get underway. Question 1 is from Dean Clark of Bishop Stortford. His question is, how can I get better at hills when I live somewhere with no hills? Common problem for people who live in Hertfordshire and Essex is trying to find a decent hill to train on. For me, hill training is really, when you break it down to its nuts and bolts, made up of two things. One is leg strength and endurance, and the second thing is basically your cardio conditioning. So you can offset the issue of not having any decent hills to train on by sort of training these two things. So the first thing, the leg strength and the strength endurance, you're going to find things like doing lots of walking lunges for distance, especially in a weighted vest, or carrying something heavy is going to help with that leg conditioning. Also stuff like using a prowler or sled that's loaded up with weight, that is going to help generally, because the angle that you find yourself at when you're using a prowler or a sled is comparable to running up and down a hill. You can either do it very heavy and have that feeling of your heart beating out your chest, which we'll get onto in a minute on talking about the conditioning for it, or you can go fast and just lean into it and just run, and that's going to be a good way of using the sled to your advantage to get that feeling of bursting uphill. Hills, they vary in different sizes, so your best bet is to sort of like vary the amount of time that you do that for. Sometimes do it for a long time, sometimes do it for shorter bursts, but either way, try and get that in there. If you can't use a power sled, you don't have anything like a prowler, then go into a car park when it's empty on a Sunday, for example, and pushing a car full of your mates around is going to be quite fun, and that can be quite a fun training session in itself. Just make sure it's not busy and you haven't got a lot of traffic there. That's one way of doing it. The treadmill is possibly an obvious one. I don't really like treadmills for running on. I don't think they promote a very good running style, and I think they're quite bad for the body, but I think they're good from a walking point of view. So if you took, say, your comfortable running speed, cut that in half, and then got on a treadmill and really concentrated on powering up the treadmill when it's at a sort of very steep angle, you're going to get some benefits for hill training, but basically because you're using a lot of the same muscles. You can really focus on firing up those glutes and hamstrings as you're going up it. And also, like, the most important thing, and this is when we get onto conditioning, is learning to control your heart rate, and really focusing on your breathing. So when your heart is beating really fast, it's because your body is demanding oxygen, and your body is demanding you pay oxygen so you can complete the task that you're doing. So it makes sense that when you get to a hill, or when you're training for hills, you concentrate on your breathing right from the offset. So offset, not offset, not a teacher. Anyway, so long breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, as you go through it, and just trying to keep that heart rate under control. And if you do that, if you can stop your heart rate from hitting that max, then it's going to stop you from getting fatigued. You're going to recover a bit quicker when you get off the hill, or when you're going down the hill, or you hit an obstacle at the top of the hill in the case of Spartan. So yeah, really focusing on breathing is going to help you with that as well. So just to recap, walking lunges with a weight, pushing stuff like prowler, sled, or car full of your mates around a car park, and then using a treadmill on a high incline, but for power walking, basically, not running. So that is my answer to Dean. Question 2 from Simon Chilly of Letchworth. Should I be focusing on correcting my weaknesses or increasing my strengths? For example, learning techniques to compensate for weak shoulders versus lifting weights above my head. So I'm a big fan of playing with strengths, but working on weaknesses. Okay, your strengths are your strengths. You're not going to find them dip very much. They just need to be maintained. But weaknesses are really going to help you be prepared for OCR fitness in general if you tackle them head on. So don't shy away from correcting weaknesses. If you find them, work on them. Okay, and that's going to take maybe some honest self-appraisal, or maybe getting a coach to looking at your overall fitness and assess in order to find where your gaps are and trying to fill in those gaps. The less gaps you have, the more well-rounded as an athlete or runner you're going to be in these events, or just fitness in general. In specifically to weak shoulders, I think concentrating on a bit of mobility work is going to be the first thing with shoulders. Doing some bandage stretches, stuff like that, rolling them off, making sure that they're nice and loose before you get started with anything. Then anything that in terms of body weight that you can do, like bear crawling, press ups, any of the family of crawls, or anything where you're on all fours, is going to be great for your shoulder stability and strength. And then I would say don't shy away from pressing overhead. I mean, there's a huge plethora of benefits that come from pushing weights overhead, from a conditioning point of view, from a general strength point of view, and for your core strength. Just start off at a manageable weight and build up, until you're sort of building your strength, and you're getting benefits. Once you're getting good at that, you can utilize it for all sorts of things. So that would be my answer to that. In short, correct your weaknesses and play with your strengths. Don't shy away from doing that. Question 3 is from our new performance coach on the team, Graham. Hi, Graham. This is your question. What's the biggest factor you found that determines success or failure in training for an OCR? And then there's a second question onto that, and which is the hardest obstacle to complete in an OCR, and how do you best complete it? So I think this, for me, these whole questions, it centers around one thing in particular, and that's preparedness. That is going to be the biggest factor for success or failure. The other thing is being focused on the task at hand, and sort of, if you have weaknesses, like we talked about in Simon's question, is being focused and dedicated to fixing them in the run up to an event. And that's going to help you be prepared. If you go into any event not prepared for either the terrain that is involved in the race, or the conditions you're going to be in, for example, if it's very cold and it's going to be very wet, if you're not prepared for that, that's going to be an obstacle to your success. And then maybe going into an event with like an obvious weakness, like not being prepared for that distance, or maybe going in and being like, well, my carries aren't so good, or my overall sort of strength isn't very good, I can't carry my own body weight very good. That's all things that you can prepare for beforehand. Being honest with yourself about what are your strengths and weaknesses is going to help you be prepared, because you're going to be able to make allowances for that. So I would say that is the biggest factor, is preparedness, and then focus on training to make sure you're prepared. And which is the hardest obstacle to complete in an OCR, and how do you best complete it? For me, I think the hardest obstacle is going to be anything that sort of attacks those weaknesses head on, and you're best going to be able to complete it by being prepared for it. For me, on a personal level, the hardest obstacle for me to complete in an OCR is any time there is a swim. I'm an okay swimmer. I'm not great, but I find if I'm fatigued from a run, or from doing some carries, or from going over a long time or distance, and I hit a swim, then like my swimming, because it's not great, is going to suffer when I come to it in a race. And there's been times in races where I've just not had it in me to be able to complete a swim. I've been too knackered, and like I've had to take a forfeit or something like that, and that's sort of affected my time, or my overall performance at the end of it. So I could have completed that better if I'd just been prepared for swimming. If it's a weakness, I could have worked on it. So yeah, that for me is the hardest obstacle to complete in an OCR. Apart from the spear throw, and you know, I've been meaning to get around to building a decent spear for ages, so I could practice with that. And believe me, I've needed to practice. I think I've hit 2 spear throws in 2 years over the course of 12 races, I think, which is not great. So in absence of me not wanting to get a drill out and make a spear, I've been prepared by trying to get good at burpees. So you know, that's the other way of around it. If you can't actually prepare for the task at hand, be prepared for the forfeit. So that's the first 3 questions done in my question and answer show. I'm going to leave a email in the comments basically. So if you have a question, you can answer it. I'd be very happy to. I'm very happy for feedback, or you know, to start a debate in the comments about anything we've spoken about today. And I'll be back in a couple of days with another Q&A show. Thanks very much for watching.